2020 was a year many of us will not be able to forget. COVID-19 changed our lives in ways we could hardly imagine before, and it's tough to say when and if our lives will get back to normal. But it also brought us together, united by the sole purpose of finding a vaccine that could stop this rampaging worldwide spread. Thanks to a lot of hard work and dedication from some of the world's best scientists and researchers, after just shy of 1 year following the first case, we have a lot of vaccines available, all with promising results, some already approved, others waiting for approval. But while COVID affected and will probably still affect many of us, there are groups of people, sometimes celebrities with huge followings, arguing that the virus is a hoax, that the vaccine shouldn't be trusted, while our governments are trying to convince us that we should take the vaccines as soon as they are made available to us. While I don't support any of these crazy conspiracy theories related to the virus, while I do trust science and medicine, I think it's actually okay to ask questions about these new vaccines. So if that's the case, if you have some questions, then you are in the right spot, because my name is Andrew Dandrew and I am on a mission to search this entire wonderful universe for answers to the most important questions and explain these answers to you like you are 5. So let's find out how these new COVID vaccines work. The main goal of a vaccine is to teach the immune system how an infectious agent looks like. Then, in the case of a real infection, your body can stop the disease before it gets a chance to cause some real harm. The traditional way of doing this implied using weakened viruses or parts of viruses that were enough to trigger an immune response but not enough to cause a real harmful disease. But there's a problem with this approach. It can take a lot of time to take the virus, multiply it, and then weaken it or extract parts of it to create a traditional vaccine. And sometimes, as was the case with COVID-19, you don't have that much time to wait. That's why scientists started looking for alternative methods of making vaccines, and 30 years ago, their eyes turned to the messenger RNA. Viruses are made out of pieces of DNA and RNA wrapped in a coat of proteins. They enter your body, hijack your cells, forcing them to stop doing what they are usually doing and instead multiply the virus. And they transmit these instructions to the cell using messenger RNA. Your cells naturally know how to read and interpret messenger RNA, producing the components it describes. In other words, this mRNA is like a recipe describing parts that make up a virus. And since mRNA is so fast and easy to produce inside a lab, mRNA vaccines seemed like a great solution. But decades of hard work were required in order to produce mRNA that could be absorbed by the right cells, that could avoid being destroyed by the chemicals inside our blood, and that could elicit the exact immune response required. Over the last 30 years, scientists have been studying mRNA vaccines for the flu, for Ebola, for Zika, for rabies, for cytomegalovirus, adding more pieces to the puzzle and making this approach more viable with each and every new experiment. Companies like Pfizer and BioNTech in Germany or Moderna in Massachusetts had built platforms ready to deliver an mRNA vaccine for any infectious disease. They just needed the right mRNA sequence. Then COVID-19 struck the world. Just weeks after the discovery of the virus causing it, Chinese scientists published the full structure of its genes. And researchers realized they could create a vaccine by targeting its spike proteins, the proteins that surround the virus and that give it its crown, or its corona, thus also giving it its name. A few more weeks later, the first mRNA COVID vaccines were ready for trials, and just after 11 months following the first recorded official cases of COVID-19, both the European Union and the United States of America approved the mRNA COVID vaccines to be used on humans. This led to people taking these mRNA COVID shots as soon as December 2020. Therefore, many people rightfully question these vaccines since they happen so fast. How could we produce these vaccines at this rate when in the past it took us years and years to make a vaccine and also test it long term? This is pretty much a personal opinion, and you might agree with it or you might not, but I think part of the reason why COVID had a vaccine so fast has to do with the huge impact this disease had over the whole world, pretty much. A lot of people unfortunately suffered a lot from the disease, a lot of people unfortunately died, but also people that didn't catch the disease luckily still had to suffer due to the restrictions imposed by the authorities trying to contain the spread. Maybe you couldn't work as you did before, maybe you couldn't travel as you used to do, maybe you couldn't live your life the way you lived it before. You couldn't go to your favorite restaurant, you couldn't meet your friends, you couldn't go see your family. The point is, a lot of people were willing to spend a lot of money to find a cure. A lot of people were willing to maybe change the laws or bypass some useless bureaucracy only to accelerate the process of finding a vaccine for COVID-19. And scientists did indeed have a lot of money, so this allowed them to run multiple trials in parallel, and regulators did change a lot of the processes that usually slowed down trials like this one. But something you can speed up is testing the safety of these vaccines in the long run. And these are very valid concerns because obviously we only had 1 year to test these vaccines. How can we know that they are safe in the long run? And the truth is, scientists are still gathering the data. They don't have the actual information at this point. So all they can do is make an educated guess. And their educated guess is that these vaccines are indeed safe in the long run as well. And this is why. First of all, the mRNA is not a virus. It is not a harmful agent. It is basically like a piece of paper that holds some instructions to fabricate some proteins. And it usually gets broken down as soon as the cells follow the instructions. So it's like a piece of paper that you read once and then you tear it apart and it disappears from your body. This lab-created mRNA will be in your bloodstream for only a few minutes following the injection. After your cells will use it to produce the spike proteins, it will get broken down. Your cells will just resume doing what they usually do, and the only thing left behind will be these newly created spike proteins, the ones that very closely mimic the ones found on the coronavirus. These proteins will soon be found by your immune system, which will rapidly flag them as being foreign and will start attacking them and killing them, releasing antibodies and memory cells in the process, which will then teach your immune system how to recognize the real virus in the case of a real infection and help it to eradicate the virus before it gets a chance to multiply and cause a harmful disease. So far, millions of people around the world have been vaccinated with these new mRNA COVID vaccines, and researchers have been continuously monitoring their health. And the good news is that there are very few side effects and they are usually very mild. They can include fatigue, headaches, chills, and pain at the site of the injection, and they can be treated symptomatically, so using painkillers and rest. But compared to the gravity of the disease for a lot of people which end up dying, these side effects are very mild and shouldn't be a cause of concern. The truth is that all medication will have side effects. Even your ubiquitous pain medicine will have many side effects written on the leaflet. But it's always a matter of risks versus benefits. And the benefits of a COVID vaccine that prevents disease in 90% of the cases far outweigh some mild side effects that only affect a small percentage of the people getting the vaccine. So until any real, severe, concerning side effects that do affect a lot of people are observed, there is actually no reason to fear these new COVID vaccines. But not all COVID vaccines use the new mRNA technology. AstraZeneca uses DNA to teach your body to create the spike proteins, and this DNA is inside a cold virus that can infect chimpanzees but can't replicate inside your human body. This is a more classical approach, which means that this vaccine will be easier to store and cheaper to buy, which is great news for everybody because developing nations will be able to get more doses and vaccinate more people. And this is because mRNA vaccines require very cold storage temperatures, combined with the fact that they use new technologies for manufacturing. The price per dose is quite high, which makes them a lot harder to reach for a lot of developing nations. At the moment I'm recording this video, their vaccine is still undergoing approval, but the initial results seem to point towards an efficiency of over 70%, which is of course again great news, and the vaccine is expected to be available later this year. Another vaccine that is in the works is the one from Johnson & Johnson, and it is rather similar to the AstraZeneca one, but it is instead using an inactivated cold human virus to teach your body how to kill COVID. And the good thing about it is that it is supposedly effective in just one single dose, meaning that a lot more people would be able to be vaccinated when it becomes available. And since these vaccines are using a more classical approach which has been studied for many years, chances are high that they will be pretty safe as well. COVID is of course far from over, but we are making some huge leaps towards ending this pandemic, and these vaccines are of course very important. Ask as many questions as possible and take your time to check the facts. In today's day and age, it is very easy to spread a lot of conspiracy theories, a lot of misinformation, but if you're willing to put in the work, you will be able to filter the real information from the noise. And with that being said, if you liked this video, maybe hit the like button, maybe subscribe to the channel, and if you do want to see more, make sure to also hit the bell so you can be notified when I upload a new video. And until the next time, my name was Andrew Dandrew. Thank you for, it's still Andrew Dandrew, technically it hasn't changed. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you have an awesome day, week, stay safe, stay healthy, and I will hopefully see you in the next video.